In this video, I'm going to demonstrate how to create a spaghetti plot in SPSS that's relatively efficient and doesn't require you to reorder your variables from or your cases and data from a wide format to a long format. And so the spaghetti plot I'm going to create is going to look much like this one here. So to do so, the main thing that you have to remember is that you're probably going to have to trick SPSS into creating the spaghetti plot. And in order to implement the trick, you have to make sure you have an ID variable. And so in this case, I don't have one, so I'll show you how to create one very quickly. So I'm just going to click here and then write ID and then transform compute, and target variable is going to be ID, and then I'm going to use the case num variable function to create this variable. So here I've got ID, and you can see that it's an ID variable here, 1 to 9. And so I've got a within subjects factor here ordered in the wide format, which is typically how people analyze data in SPSS in my experience. And the variables that I'm particularly interested in are actually 7 of these. I don't want to look at all of them because I just want to look at the 7 difficult items in this particular test. And so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to conduct a tricked mixed design ANOVA with SPSS. So go into General Linear Model Repeated Measures, and whatever the number is of levels in your within subjects factor, specify them here. For me, I want to look at 7 of the items. Click Add, Define, and the 7 items that I want to look at are 3, 5, 7, 8, 11, 13, and 14. So the next thing you need to do is add ID. This is the tricky bit. Add ID to between subjects factors. Now, it's not a real between subjects factor. It's really just there to be specified to help create the plot. And in this case, I want factor in the horizontal axis and ID in the separate lines. Click Add, click Continue, and click OK. So what's happened is SPSS has created a plot of the means, but really they're just individual case values, and it's actually used case as the between subjects factor. So now I've got all the case values across time or across your within subjects factor, which is the spaghetti plot. Now it doesn't look like the original spaghetti plot I showed you here because it does require a little bit of manipulation. So double click on the chart and double click again and get rid of the fill. I think it looks better without it. And get rid of the border. Again, looks better without it. Get rid of this title at the top. And the important bit here is you also need to get rid of the markers. So if you just click on the marker once and then click on marker, you'll see border, and then get rid of the border, and it'll get rid of all the markers. And so now I've got a spaghetti plot. Now you might also want to get rid of the legend. So you can do that like that. And the last bit to make it look like what I created above is you actually have to change the colors associated with each of the case lines. Now that's up to you. You might actually prefer to present your spaghetti plot this way. Or you might want to create each line in the same color. Now this is the tedious bit. I'm going to change it to a slightly, a little bit less than black for each line, because spaghetti plots, as they become progressively more busy, which means more cases presented in the chart, you probably want to use a progressively lighter and lighter color. So in this case here, it's really not that busy of a spaghetti chart at all. So I'm using the next lowest to black as the color for the spaghetti chart. Now the tedious bit is I got to click on each line individually to actually change the color. So perhaps somebody out there actually knows of a quicker way to change these lines using the same method in the sense of tricking SPSS into creating the spaghetti plot. I have come across other methods that create spaghetti plots in SPSS, but they are actually quite tedious because they either involve you restructuring your data or they involve a series of syntax commands that it's not totally painful, but it's much more arduous and long to actually execute. Whereas doing this is really quite simple, and it's using methods that you're probably already familiar with. So here's the scatter plot that spaghetti plot that I created originally, and I've just showed you the steps I did it. Now, if you wanted to save time in the future for a future spaghetti plot, you could save as a template what you just created. So save chart template. I'm not going to demonstrate this technology of chart template. I'll assume you know a little bit about it, and if you don't, you can read about it. But I can actually save this chart template and specify all the settings here, and then click continue and save it somewhere, and then reapply this chart template to a future spaghetti chart, and it will change. It should change a large portion of it should execute a large portion of what I just did there, so I don't have to do it again. Now, I just don't know whether it's going to apply to a very large spaghetti chart. In this case here, I only had a sample size of 9 cases, so I don't know if it's going to apply it to all 200, say, if you had something like 200 cases in a spaghetti plot. So if anyone knows of any quick ways to change the line colors in the spaghetti plot, please leave me a comment. Otherwise, it's actually still not that bad of an approach to creating a spaghetti plot, particularly in comparison to what I've seen online already.